When we speak of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or CPTSD, we're not just discussing an emotional wound, but a condition that imprints itself on both the mind and body. CPTSD develops from prolonged repetitive trauma, often rooted in experiences of abuse, neglect, or chronic adversity. Its effects are deeply embedded, manifesting in ways that touch every aspect of a person's life. To understand CPTSD, we must first delve into how trauma impacts the brain. Key areas of the brain are significantly affected: the midbrain, amygdala, hippocampus, and prefrontal cortex. The midbrain is the seat of our survival instincts, governing responses like fight, flight, or freeze. Trauma sensitizes this area, creating a state of constant alertness. The midbrain signals the amygdala, the brain's emotional processor, to be on high alert, leading to an exaggerated response to stress. The amygdala acts as the brain's alarm system. For those with CPTSD, this alarm is often stuck in the on position, triggering intense fear or anger even in non-threatening situations. The result is a life lived in the shadow of past dangers, where every situation feels like a potential threat. The hippocampus is essential for forming and recalling memories. Trauma can diminish the size and functionality of the hippocampus, leading to fragmented or distorted memories. This can explain why people with CPTSD may have vivid recollections of certain traumatic events while other details remain obscured. Finally, the prefrontal cortex, the brain's decision-making hub, suffers under the weight of trauma. This area helps regulate emotions and impulses, but in those with CPTSD, it can become weakened, leading to difficulties in managing emotions, making decisions, or thinking clearly in stressful situations. Beyond the brain, trauma also disrupts the body's ability to maintain balance, leading to states of hyper-arousal and hypo-arousal. In hyper-arousal, the nervous system is overstimulated, resulting in insomnia, irritability, and anxiety. It's as if the body is perpetually braced for impact, unable to relax even in moments of calm. Conversely, hypo-arousal manifests as numbness, detachment, and fatigue, a state of shutting down where the person feels disconnected from themselves and the world around them. These physiological responses are not just about how a person feels. They are deeply rooted in the body's attempt to survive. Imagine living in a state of constant hyper-arousal where your body never feels safe, or hypo-arousal where everything feels distant and out of reach. These are not just fleeting emotions. They are chronic states that impact daily functioning. The symptoms of CPTSD are numerous, and each one tells a story of the brain and body's attempt to cope with prolonged trauma. Here are 17 key symptoms of CPTSD, each with its own unique impact. Emotional dysregulation, intense emotions that are difficult to manage, such as uncontrollable anger, sadness, or anxiety. For example, someone might fly into a rage over a minor inconvenience or fall into deep despair without a clear reason. Persistent sadness, a pervasive sense of sadness or hopelessness that lingers even when circumstances improve. This might look like chronic depression, where the person feels a constant weight on their chest. Explosive anger, sudden, intense outbursts of anger that seem disproportionate to the situation. An example could be someone becoming enraged over a small mistake made by a friend or partner. Feelings of hopelessness, a belief that things will never get better, leading to a sense of despair about the future. This can manifest as a reluctance to plan for the future, or a belief that nothing they do will make a difference. Chronic mistrust, a deep-seated distrust of others, even those who are close and supportive. This could look like constantly questioning a partner's motives or assuming that friends are out to harm them. Hypervigilance, always being on edge, constantly scanning the environment for threats. For instance, someone might be unable to relax in social settings, always looking for exits or potential dangers. Intrusive thoughts, unwanted, distressing memories or thoughts that intrude into daily life. These might include vivid flashbacks of traumatic events, often triggered by something seemingly unrelated. Nightmares, disturbing dreams that replay traumatic events or evoke intense fear and anxiety. A person might wake up in a panic, drenched in sweat, feeling as though they're reliving the trauma. Avoidance, steering clear of people, places, or activities that remind them of the trauma. This could mean avoiding certain locations or refusing to talk about specific topics that trigger painful memories. Flashbacks, reliving the traumatic event as if it's happening in the present. During a flashback, a person might physically react as though they are back in the traumatic situation, feeling the same fear or pain. Dissociation, feeling detached from oneself or the world as if observing life from a distance. Someone might feel as though they are watching their life unfold from outside their body, unable to connect with their surroundings. Self-perception, issues, negative beliefs about oneself, such as feeling worthless, unlovable, or inherently flawed. For example, someone might believe they are unworthy of love or success, even when evidence suggests otherwise. Distorted perception of perpetrator, holding a skewed view of the abuser, which can include idealizing or feeling an inexplicable connection to them. This might involve defending the abuser's actions or feeling responsible for their behavior. Relationship difficulties, struggling with intimacy, trust, and boundaries in relationships. A person might either become overly dependent on their partner or withdraw completely, fearing vulnerability. Physical symptoms, chronic pain, headaches, or other physical ailments that have no clear medical cause, often linked to the body's stored trauma. These symptoms might flare up in response to stress or reminders of the trauma. Guilt and shame, a pervasive sense of guilt or shame, often for events beyond their control. For example, someone might feel guilty for not preventing the trauma or believe they deserved it. Loss of a coherent sense of self, a fragmented identity where the person struggles to reconcile different parts of themselves. This could manifest as feeling like a different person in different situations, or an inability to understand who they truly are. The loss of a coherent sense of self is particularly devastating. Trauma can fracture the individual's sense of identity, leaving them feeling disconnected from who they were before the trauma. This disorganized self may result in a person feeling like they are constantly shifting roles, unable to find a stable sense of who they are. It's as if the trauma has shattered their inner mirror, and they're left trying to piece together a reflection that no longer makes sense. Understanding the cause of CPTSD requires recognizing the difference between it and PTSD. PTSD is typically the result of a single traumatic event, such as or a natural disaster. In contrast, CPTSD stems from chronic trauma, situations where the individual feels trapped, such as long-term abuse, neglect, or domestic violence. This prolonged exposure to trauma leads to a more complex array of symptoms, deeply affecting the person's identity, relationships, and worldview. Healing from CPTSD is not just about addressing the symptoms. It's about rebuilding the sense of self that has been lost. This is where somatic psychology interventions come into play. Somatic psychology focuses on the connection between the mind and body, recognizing that trauma is stored not just in our memories, but in our muscles, tissues, and nervous system. Somatic interventions might include mindfulness practices, which help the individual become more aware of their bodily sensations and learn to calm their nervous system. Yoga and breathwork are also powerful tools, as they help release the tension that has been stored in the body, allowing the person to reconnect with themselves on a deeper level. For instance, someone with CPTSD might use yoga to gently stretch and open areas of the body that hold tension, such as the hips or shoulders. As they move through the poses, they might notice emotions arising, anger, sadness, or even joy, emotions that have been locked away for years. Breathwork can also be transformative, teaching the person to use their breath to calm their nervous system and bring themselves back to the present moment. Healing from CPTSD is a journey that requires patience, compassion, and a willingness to confront the past. But it is a journey worth taking because it leads to a future where you are not defined by your trauma, but by your strength, resilience, and capacity for healing. If trying on your own doesn't work, you might want to consider exploring professional help. Therapy can provide a safe space to unpack the layers of trauma, to understand its impact, and to learn new ways of being. As we close this discussion, let the words of Carl Jung inspire you. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Healing is a choice to confront the past, to embrace the present, and to create a future that reflects your true self.